Thank you. Ah, greetings. Ah, it's good to be here. I've been here in this audience to see Richard a few times, and I've got to enjoy Richard many times with the sub-regional ministers meetings, as also at the Canuga conference one year when he brought his Muppet and did his alter ego thing. I'm sure he's done that here. He is a very, very beloved minister. And I wanted to let you all know that Richard and Maureen have made their move and have moved on to Hawaii this week, in case you didn't know. And for the woman or man, whoever is here for the first time, someone will catch you up on that. But Richard has made a decision to, and I watched a few of his talks, the last 3 talks, so I could catch up with you all to prepare myself to how can I speak to you today? I'm just that, I was a school teacher, so I like to speak to the people where they're at and what they need, what I perceive that they need to hear. So I'm very happy and honored to be a part of this very important time in your lives, of this time of letting go, this time of saying goodbye to and having an ending. And I just finished working with a church that had an ending to deal with when they said goodbye to a beloved minister of 30 years. I worked in the church that Chad O'Shea had developed for the past 30 years, and he had passed while I was the minister there. So I worked with some of them who wanted it and spoke from a book that I highly recommend by Robert Brummett called Finding Yourself in Transition. Robert Brummett is a Unity minister, instructor at Unity Institute, and all the pastoral care work that I learned. And Robert has a lot to say in this book that really can help us get through a time of transition in our lives. So I'd like to share a little bit of what he shared in this book. There's a lot. One of the things he says is there's 3 phases of change. There's an ending, there's a void, and then there's a new beginning. And he wants us to honor these 3 phases. Not to jump from the ending to the new beginning without having a void time in between, a wilderness experience, so to speak. In this book, Robert uses the story of the Israelites in the wilderness, coming out of slavery and finally to the promised land. And he uses that a great deal and really helps us to see how wonderful a metaphor it is for our own spiritual journeys. And so one of the things he says is, don't ignore the ending. It's very important for us to let the ending be. And I know, I listened to Richard, he was amazing how he said, I am a spiritual being in a body. And my body is telling me that I'm more spiritual now than I am physical, because I have to let go of the physical. I want to invite you to allow yourself to also be human during this time, to allow yourself to feel the grief. Because you know what happens if you don't allow the grief to come up? If you push it down and stifle it, it festers, and it will come up. It might come up in a nasty way like anger, or splits in the group, and disagreements, and you don't know why, or just a heaviness that you can't quite identify. Allow yourself to say, oh, I think I'm feeling some grief here. I think I must be human. Because that is what we feel when we lose someone significant in our lives. when we lose something that we've been counting on. You've been counting on Richard and Maureen up here for the past 5 years. And that's been part of your identity. And that has suddenly changed. And it's changed so significantly, they're not even in town anymore. And it is time to recognize this as an ending. And the ending brings a wilderness experience, a void time. And Robert likes to share 4 disses. He says one of the things in an ending is disengagement. That there are something that's changed, and it's no longer there, so you've got to unplug from it. You can't keep holding on to it, especially when that something physically removed itself from your presence. You have no choice but to disengage from that the way it used to be. And that can be upsetting for some people. We don't like change. And that's inevitable, though, that as soon as we feel like something's all set up and it's just right, that's when somebody pulls away and we realize the only thing that's constant is change. Robert says another thing that happens with endings is a disidentification. You may be thinking, you may have called this church Richard's Church, and those ministers in the subregion call this Richard's Church. Well, it isn't really, is it? It's your church. You're the ones who stay. And as I've been going around to different churches I've been interviewing at, I've been saying to them, I will never call this Pat's church. I don't want it to be my church. It's your church, and I serve you. So then it becomes our church, but never my church. If you did see it as Richard's church and you were going to hear Richard, you need to work on that now because you've been forced to see it differently now, a disidentification. And now you have to say, well, if we're not Richard's Church, then what are we? Who are we? How do we show up in Wilmington? And so you'll be working together as a community to ask those questions openly and say, who are we now? And what are we called to be in Wilmington? And let that go and allow yourself to see who you are. A third dis is disenchantment. The world is no longer the way it was, nice and neat and tidy. And the illusion is over, and now we say, oh. And you might have a long road to hoe to figure out what's next. It might be short. You know, that 40 years in the wilderness thing isn't really 40 years. It's a number of fullness. It's a... can you turn that down just a little bit? I feel like I'm bouncing off the ceiling. Is everyone in the back able to hear me now? I feel better about that, thank you. 40 years. It's a time of whenever it's done, then it's done. And so you'll wander and you'll wonder and you'll ask and you'll pull in and you'll push back and you'll do a dance of finding out who we are now. It's all the opportunity of breaking down, doing the disenchantment work, redoing your collective beliefs and assumptions. All of those will be questioned now. But the thing that Richard has told you over and over again is that spiritual growth and not just awakening, but deepening in your spiritual understanding is the work. To be tuned in and turned on by practicing and practicing and practicing. To realize that we can break down those illusions and assumptions and be truly who we're called to be. And we do that together. Actually, spiritual growth is matter of stripping down all those enchantments that we've outgrown. Too bad, we've got to grow up. And the last dis is disorientation. We get confusion when we mourn, when we grieve a loss. We got confused. And we ask those big questions, why did this have to happen? And we have to live in that confusion for a while and finally just come to, I don't know why it had to happen. And that's okay to not know. Knowing deep within you that Richard is okay because he told you that in an amazing opportunity that you had the past 3 months to hear this man speaking the words that he practices, to be able to say, I don't know why this is happening, but it is, and I've decided not to fight it, and to re-identify myself as a spiritual being. You got to witness a very amazing situation that will touch all of you, has touched all of you for the rest of your lives. So allow yourself to find yourself through that grieving, to remember what he said over and over again, and let him be your teacher for a long, long time. Thank goodness we have YouTube, and you can listen to him again and again, as I did. Let him be your teacher as you go through your grieving of your loss. Let that loss be your teacher so that you can re-identify in a deeper and stronger way. As the Israelites went through the wilderness, they did not go alone, and they did not go without grace. As we read in the Daily Word, it alluded to, give us this day our daily bread, which is the line from the Lord's Prayer. I do believe that the daily bread that's alluded to there is the manna that the Israelites got when they were in the wilderness. Every night, dew would fall. And I'm thinking, having just been in Arizona a couple weeks ago, there is no dew in the desert. Boy, is it dry. But there was dew in that desert at night, in that story that is told. And in this story was told over and over again for centuries to help the people get it, that even when they feel like they're in a wilderness, they're not alone. They're always provided for. The Lord will always be with you. They are told over and over again. The dew would form, and when it dried, there was something to eat left behind. It was what they called manna. It was always there every morning. That's grace. It's there. It sustained the people, and it reminded the people that God is with them. It's just a little simple to say, our daily bread is always going to be there. You don't have to hoard it, because it'll spoil if you do. Just let it be. It will be there. Trust the process. Grace will be with each one of you and with you as a collective group as you go through this, re-identifying yourself and questioning what's next. Grace came to the people at night with a pillar of fire guiding the way, and in the daytime a pillar of cloud guiding their way. What a great metaphor for how God is with us all the time. That strength and wisdom and power, that love that sustains us in our wilderness times. It's there. It's there. You might see it in the face of another, in the hand holding of another when you have sudden tears over what has been lost, in the guidance that you'll feel from each other in your community meetings as you talk about what's next. You'll feel that grace, that manna, that pillar of fire leading you through the wilderness. And then there's one more part of the story, getting to the new beginning. In this part, the story about getting into the promised land is recorded in 2 parts, Numbers and in Joshua. I like the Joshua one because it has 3 lines repeated in this chapter that's so important. It's repeated 4 times. Joshua 1. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River, into the land that I'm about to give them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to the great river, the Euphrates, to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand up to you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, I will also be with you. You see how the I am is always with you. It says it over and over and over again. I will never leave you or forsake you. It's kind of why I brought the fish in for the children today, to help us remember that when we feel that we're forsaken by God, when God is not with us, it's not about God leaving us. It's about our consciousness stepping away from the awareness of God. The fish is always in the water. He just didn't know he was. We're always in God. We live and move and have our being in the I am. Sometimes we just don't recognize it. So remember, you're never forsaken. Here's the line that's 4 times in this chapter. Be strong and courageous. Strong and courageous. Because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give you. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law that I've given you. Do not turn it from the right or the left, that you will be successful wherever you go. And I think about this, do not depart from the law. The law is what you've heard from the 5 unity principles and what Richard has taught you, the Noble Truths, which is his Buddhist Christian kind of way of doing things. It's that idea of God is always with us, a power and a presence, and it's the only power, and it's good. And we are part of that divine, and our inheritance is our divinity. And we can change our lives by changing our thoughts and noticing our feelings and letting consciousness shift. That's the law. We just are called to practice it, and practice it, and practice it. So it says, be strong and very courageous. Do not depart from the law. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. And then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. A 3rd time. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. For the I am, the Lord your God, the I am is with you wherever you go. And it goes on, and Joshua orders the people to get ready. I wanted to tell you about what happened when Moses got to the promised land and looked over the mountaintop into the valley below. He sent 12 people to go explore the land. 1 man chosen from every tribe. And he sent them in to find out what it would be like, to spy it out. 10 of them came back, though they all came back laden with gifts and pomegranates and the land of milk and honey and grapes hanging over these big sticks that they carried back. They said, it's a great place. But 10 of them said, but the people there, they're so big. And they built these walls. And you should see Jericho. And we felt like grasshoppers in that land. And 2 of them said, we can do this. No problem. Because we know God's with us. Those 2 were Caleb and Joshua. And I went, of course, when I read these stories, I have to go and see what Charles Fillmore has to say about those people. Charles said in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, I found a quote from Charles's lecture that said, Caleb is this guy who represents the powers of zeal and, faith and understanding. He got it, and he had faith to carry it out. He was a man who stuck to his principles and walked the truth that he knew. That is what we are called to be now. Pull out that Caleb in you. Stick to what you know. Stay with the law. Do your practice. And be strong and courageous, as Joshua 1 says. Joshua is actually a very evolved human being. Joshua's name is similar to Yeshua, which is Jesus. It is this character of a highly evolved man. Joshua is like the next harbinger of Jesus. He's really figured it out. And the stories in Joshua show it, how well he was able to live a prosperous and faith-based life. So Joshua and Caleb come in with spiritual strength. They are the ones who are strong and courageous, and they say, we can do it. Well, it turns out that the whole tribe, the whole 12 tribes couldn't go in until all 12 tribes agreed that we can do it. So the wilderness experience continued for a while for them. And actually, literally, it says, until all of that generation died out. Now, we don't have to wait till the whole generation dies out in this church before you get a new minister or start a new phase. Metaphysically, what it means is let go of the old thoughts that are hanging on to the past. Let that generation die out. Remember what you've learned. Be strong and courageous as you step into the new, and know that the I Am will never forsake you. And then you can step in and see that land of milk and honey and know you can do it. Know you can do it. And so he says one more time at the end of the chapter, the people, and that's your thoughts, listening to Joshua, the Christ consciousness. The people said, whatever you've commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. That's your work. To let your thoughts and feelings, the ones that come up and say, it'll never be like it used to be. You're right, it won't. But you'll survive if you're strong and courageous. Allow the Christ consciousness to command you. Just as we fully obeyed Moses, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord our God be with us, as he was with Moses. And whoever rebels against your word and does not obey your words, may whoever rebels shall be put to death. Whoa, there's that Old Testament thing. Well, metaphysically, remember, it's the thoughts that are rebelling against the Christ consciousness that need to be put to death. Cast them out. Allow yourself to follow the law, the I Am, that says, I am always with you. You are in me. You are me. And as you are strong and courageous, and look at those demons in your mind, and look at those feelings that get in your way, and let them go, and be more and more disciplined through your practice. You can walk into the promised land. And the last line is, only be strong and courageous. 4 times in one chapter. So I call you to be strong and courageous now. It doesn't mean that you can't weep, mourn, grieve what has been lost. It's very fresh. Allow your humanness to be there. We're not just spiritual beings, we're human beings too. Allow that humanness to come up. Support each other in community. And allow yourself to know that this too shall pass, and with strength and courage, as a group, as a team, your new identity will emerge. Doesn't need to take 40 years, just takes as long as it needs to take. Be patient with yourself, and know that you're always supported through grace. Thank you for listening. It's my opportunity.